Hey yo, what's going on, and welcome back to another denim DIY video. Bro, man, a simple instruction, just keep it long at the top. They didn't do it. Okay, but anyways, so my sister a couple of months ago for New Year's, she bought me a bunch of linen fabrics with Japanese designs on them because she knows I'm really into like Japanese aesthetics and the style and just the look of it. But here are the fabrics that she bought me. So she bought me 6 in total, and you can see they're all different patterns and designs, really cool. Now they're all pretty much the same size, so opening it up compared to my face, I guess. So yeah, it's not like the biggest, but it is big enough for one thing. And what is that? Patchwork denim. So that's what we do today. We'll make some patchwork pants. Now I do have a reference pants I will base this project off of. I'll put that on screen right now. I don't know who made these jeans. I just saw them on Instagram. Thought they're really cool. I think the look of it would suit these designs and the jeans I'm going to use for this project. You know, my first denim project was patchwork, and those didn't last at all because it was literally falling apart. Those did not last at all. So it's going to be interesting to see, you know, how far I've come and how these will turn out compared to my very first patchwork project. But yeah, before anything, make sure to drop a like if you guys like this video. Make sure to subscribe as well. It'll help me out so much. Join my Discord, all that good stuff, and follow my Instagram as well. Whoa. Let's get into the video. For this project, we're going to use a thrifted pair of Levi's S61s with a relaxed fit. If I had to choose some pants that I'd use for all of my projects, I'd use this one for sure. I mean, the quality, the color, the fit, literally perfect. My original plan for the panels was to base it off the panels from the reference picture. So with it beside me, I drew in the outlines of each panel with a white chalk pencil. For each panel, I measured the outline of the square I was going to cut out, but made sure to increase the length and width by 1 inch to leave room for the hems. I measured and marked on the fabrics with Sharpie since it was going to be cut and folded anyways, especially since the lines of the white chalk pencil were basically invisible on most of the fabrics. There were some designs that I didn't want to mark up, so I just flipped the fabric over and marked on that side instead. I said this in previous videos, but preparation is always like the key thing if you really want the final product to look really good. Like, it's always good to invest a lot of time into the prep because that way you'll have less mistakes. But you know, I'm prepping right now. I'm cutting out the stuff too, but honestly, it's taking so long and I'm kind of getting impatient. Is this like a problem with me? Just me? Or something where I can't really focus on one thing for too long anymore? Like, I just gotta move on to the next thing, you know? So instead, I'm just gonna cut out like random squares and rectangles, 2 of each from each fabric, and then just work with that, kind of like winging it. So that's what I did. Instead of taking multiple measurements and being super precise, I just measured and drew random sized rectangles while also making sure to remember to add on an extra inch for each length and width for the folded hem. Once the panels were cut out, I folded one side at a time to make a crease, then ironed it flat. I did this 4 times because, you know, 4 sides, so that the raw edges won't be showing. I'm gonna do something that's kind of outside my comfort zone. I've never really worked with this inseam, this type of inseam before, but I kind of realized how simple it is just to put it back together. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna open up the pants on the inseam actually instead of the outseam. And then that way I can probably use my sewing machine to sew the patches on so it'll be really secure, or if I decide to hand sew it, I'll have an easier time doing that. The last time I added a bunch of patches to pants, I did so without undoing any seams, and bruh, hand stitching everything took hella long. So by opening up the inseam, 1, I'll learn how to work with that specific seam for future projects, and 2, I'll be able to sew in some patches with the sewing machine to speed things up. So I opened up the bottom hems and started ripping the threads holding the inseam together. I decided to open up the legs up to only just before the crotch area because that's the area I didn't want to make a mistake when I put it back together. Now we can start sewing in the patches. Since the area adjacent and above the crotch area were inaccessible to my sewing machine, I hand sewed those patches using black size 10 crochet thread. I was doing an over and under type of stitching for a lot of them, but it was taking up way too much time, so I just resorted to just do a straight stitch along the edges of each panel, which didn't really secure the corners as well as the previous stitches did, but sped things up and did the job. I wanted to add something to the butt pocket so they wouldn't look so out of place. After ripping it off, I traced on some fabric the cutout that would be sewn onto it, making sure to leave room so that I can fold it under the pocket to make the fabric look clean with no raw edges showing. I traced the outline on the back of the fabric to avoid marking up the design, but realized that the cutout isn't like the panels I've been cutting out earlier, which were rectangles. This one was an asymmetrical shape, so when I flipped it over right side up and put it in position, it was mirrored. So yeah, nice. Still worked out though, just wasn't placed how I originally planned it to be. Afterwards, I sewed it onto the butt pocket and reattached it to the pants, but a little off-centered from where it was originally. This next part goes against what I taught you guys about adding in a flare panel. Forget using the outseam, we're gonna just measure and mark a straight line beside the outseam, as this is where the flare is gonna go. Originally, my plan was to make the flare panels on the front panel of the pants, but I kind of realized too late that I actually cut one side on the back panel. Honestly, it doesn't really matter. For the flare, I wanted it to extend the bottom of the pants by 2 inches, so I cut out a flare accordingly. Making sure the flare panel was flat, I pinned it onto the pants and used my sewing machine to sew a zigzag stitch along the sides. After a couple days, it took a couple days, the panels were finally finished, but when I took a step back and looked at the pants, I felt it was still not done yet. It looked like it was a little too simple and had a lot of empty spaces, so I decided to add in some SASHIKO stitchings in different areas of the pants. I tried my best to make sure I wasn't adding too much because, you know, less is more, but obviously I still didn't want to add too little. On the back of the right leg, I made an area similar to the capital jeans I made before, but there was enough space to add a bigger design. I wanted to add some kind of graphic that I can draw using straight stitchings that follow the Japanese theme I was going for with these pants. To create a perfect replica of the design I wanted, I created a stencil with my Cricut cutter, but unfortunately, after cutting out and removing the stencil, the lines didn't line up right and it would take too long to fix the issue by attaching and reattaching lines in the program. So I just decided to just freehand the design on my pants with some white chalk pencil. To avoid confusing myself and because the white chalk lines fade pretty easily, I drew in a small section of the design, sewed in those sections, and then repeated the process until it was finished. To close up the pants, at first I used my sewing machine, but I think the tension was off, so by the time I closed up one leg, the fabric was uneven and there was like an excess sticking out. This was obviously unacceptable, so I ripped open the pants again and resorted to what I normally do to fix my problems. I hand sewed it. I sewed each side twice though to make sure that it's secure and sturdy.